Officials of the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education, teachers. Today you have the chance to make a difference.
Normally cyclones, as some of you know about cyclones, in Fiji comes from the northwest of Fiji. Normally comes down near Sawas, comes across to Nandi, clips a little bit of Lautoka and then goes down southwards. This time around, because of the climatic events changing now, the cyclone came from the northeast, came from Vanuatu, hit Lomai Viti, northwest of Viti Levu and went across. Originally, they said that the cyclone was going to come straight for Suva. Come through Suva, Nasinu, go through the middle of Viti Levu, come out through Nandi, and then go onwards. Can you imagine if that had happened? Nearly 300,000 people live in the Nasori-Lemi corridor. That's nearly a third of our population lives in that area. A lot of people live in squatter homes, etc., good homes. But the strength of the cyclone, of those people who went through the cyclone will tell you, most of the homes would have been damaged. Not just the homes, but the factories. There are a lot of factories. A lot of places where people go and work, they would have all been damaged. We went through the middle of Viti Levu, because of the scope of the cyclone, the eye of the cyclone, it would have hit the Coral Coast, taken out all the hotels. Went through Nandi, taken out Denmark. What would have happened to our economy? One single climatic event can wipe out the entire economy. One event. This is why we are saying that our economy is vulnerable. Because one event can change it. In New Zealand, they had a massive earthquake in Christchurch. Was the New Zealand economy okay? Yes, it was, even though the cyclone got wiped out. Did it affect its GDP overall? Not as much as it would affect ours. So we have to be aware of that. And this is why it is our biggest challenge as Fijians that we need to expand our economic base. You can't always be dependent on one sector to give you the bulk of your wealth. It's like you're in a family sometimes. When you have a large family, when you have only one person working, if that person, God forbid, dies, becomes incapacitated, the entire family suffers. If more people are working, then you have more sources of income. So we have to think as a family to expand our economy, expand our economic base. And that's what we need to do as a government too. But we all need to think along those lines to be able to understand what one event can do to our economy. We probably would not be here today if that had happened. We would have to redo our entire budget. Lots of people would have been out of job. Literally thousands of people would have been out of job. You can call social unrest. You can call social further disparity between people. These are some of the things that we need to consider when we are planning for the budget and indeed when we are planning for the future. Okay, let's open up the floor. Who wants to go first?
My name is Mira. Well, I've got a few concerns to discuss. To begin with the most immediate one, that is regarding our disables. In the Western region, there are about 5,000 disables, but there is only one bus retailer. I think we need to improve that area. And the second one is our prices of dairy products. I think they are quite high, like milk, cheese, and we all need them, especially children. To have a healthy population, we need it. And I think it should be reduced in this year's budget. And the third one is about tourism. I think our tourism is getting quite expensive. And it's one major source of income, as the PS had said. Like for say you go to a restaurant, you end up spending 25% more. I think that area also needs to be looked for. The fourth one is the climate change mitigation. Like not only with technology-wise substituting for renewable energy, but I think management policies and practices needs to be planned out, and also consumer behavior, making to awareness of something. And the last concern, which is also regarding myself, is regarding this education sector. Our secondary high school education isn't accepted globally. Like just recently I applied to a university in Singapore, but they declined my application because they think it was not in the list. Just like that, there are other countries also. I don't know if our curriculum big, but I think we can improve in that area so that we are accepted globally. And then looking at our tertiary institutes are very good. Just recently we had come up with CPA Australia, MBA, we have in partnership with so many things. We could actually accredit our universities like USP more like ANZ, Australia and New Zealand Chartered Accountants, ACCA, Associate of Certified Chartered Accountants, and we could also increase our exchange programs that is provided. Like we have only been in partnership with certain universities, like Macquarie University in Sydney, Victoria University in Melbourne, Otago University in New Zealand, and some universities in India like Hyderabad University, Japan, and some. How about we increase it? If we accredit our programs to majority of the courses that are accepted globally, our students can get a chance to go to overseas to obtain, they can go to overseas to get composure of them. They can get to learn more things, and at last they will return to our country, and they'll be an asset for us. Asset for the country. Not only that, international students will find it easier to come to our country because our climate is very nice. It's not very expensive here to live, and this way our tourism sector can also develop. So those are some concerns I have. If you would consider this for the 2016 and 17 budget.
I completely agree with you that we need to improve services provided to the disabled people in Fiji. I don't know how many of you are aware, but when the new constitution came up, we actually translated it in the Braille language. So, the Braille language are people who are blind who can read by feeling the alphabets. So we translated the Constitution Braille language in the English Braille, and then we also translated it in the Itaukei Braille too. If you want to read the Itaukei language but who are blind can do that. We are getting one done in India too in Hindi. It's taking a bit longer. But these are kind of steps we've taken, and it's highlighted in the beginning that we're meeting also again this afternoon with the disabled associations in the Western Division this afternoon at 2 o'clock. The price of things like milk and cheese. Let me tell you something. Before World War II, Fiji used to produce enough milk to meet its own demand. After World War II, and also after independence, because there's not much assistance given to dairy farmers, we produce less and less. So today, in Fiji, all of us combined, we drink about 77 million liters of milk a year. But we produce only 10 million liters of milk. So there's a huge gap. Now, all we want to drink milk. So what happens is that we need to import the milk. So the price of milk depends on the price that we buy from overseas. We've also, for example, reduced duties in various areas, in various food items. But overall, also with the reduction in VAT, the price of goods overall, what you call the basket of groceries, has come down in Fiji by 4.5%. Some people said to us when we reduce VAT, when we impose VAT on, for example, things like rice and cooking oil and tin fish. The reason why we did that was because we have a culture of dishonesty in Fiji. Many people would know. So some shopkeepers or supermarkets who sell goods that have VAT on it, and some goods, about 6 or 7 items, they don't have VAT on it. When they're filing their VAT claim, they always show more of the non-valuable items so they can claim more back. So there's a huge leak in the system. So in order to plug the hole in the system, we applied VAT across the board, but reduced VAT. So as a result of that, the overall cost of your groceries has come down, because you don't just simply rely on rice tin fish is cooking well. You need onions, you need potatoes, you need toilet paper, you need toothpaste, you need, your everyday items. If you put all of that in one basket, the overall price of the groceries has come down by 4.5%. But I completely agree. There are still a lot of businesses in Fiji who today have a huge markup on things. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, when I was in the Ministry of Tourism, I went to a shop in Nandi, and they had a bulla shirt on the wall. And it was marked $65, one bulla shirt. And I walked in and I said, oh, nice bulla shirt. And I said to the shopkeeper, how much? He said, $20. I said, why you got 65? He said, local price. Local price. So, in fact, it was a very nice shirt. There was only one piece. And another person walked in and he asked how much. He said, $25. So he's giving me $20 because I'm a minister, and $25 is ordinary guy. Now, even at selling at $25 and at $20, he's still making a profit. But he is trying to rip off the tourist. So I said to him, I said, look, if you had the same price for the tourist would walk into the shop and say, hey, this is not bad, $25. 25 Fijian dollars at that time was about $12.50 in Australia. So instead of buying one, he might buy 5. Buy one for himself, for his uncle, grandfather, cousin, nephew, whoever. That's what people do. That's what we do. When I travel overseas and I see something that's really cheap, overseas country that you don't get in your country that's cheap, you buy like 4 or 5. I buy one for my cousins and whoever else it is. So, you see, this is the business model a lot of businesses in Fiji have, and we're trying to push them. We say that you must sell at a lower margin, but have a higher turnover. Get my drift? So if you're going to sell something for $1, when you know you can sell it at 20 cents or 15 cents and still make a profit, you should probably buy it for 5 cents. If you sold it for 15 cents, instead of selling maybe 5, you might sell it 50. Because more people will buy it. You have a higher turnover. So thankfully, if you see now, if you go to Nandi Town, they don't have a distinction price. If you go to Port Denarau, you still have t-shirts now that says $19. Those polo t-shirts, the pretend polo t-shirts, those ones. So it's the same price for the tourist, same price for the local. And we need to get that type of pricing in all the other businesses too. And only then it will work really well. The other issue you had raised about the tourism, the sector being, the pricing being very high, I completely agree. And this is one of the battles we've been having with the hotels. If you go to some of the hotels, if you order, a bowl of fries, chips, it's $20, $25. And what we keep on telling them is that the Australian, the New Zealand, the American, the European tourists, they have other options. We're just not the only country. So if people actually plan their holiday, they look at those things now. So we need to sharpen our pencil in those areas too. You raised another issue about the accreditation of schools and universities. Completely agree. We need to be accredited. Unfortunately, I have to say, many of you probably were born when we had the first school in '87. We had literally dozens and dozens and dozens of very well qualified teachers who left Fiji, Australia, New Zealand. Literally. We used to export teachers, as we say. Many of them migrated. Over 100 of them. And I know that many of the teachers that taught me in high school were, some of them had masters. They were teaching in high school. And they were very well qualified. That's not to take anything away from the current teachers you have. But Fiji, after a while, I remember before in those days, we used to do New Zealand exams. You did Fiji School certificate, which is from New Zealand. University entrance exam, which is from New Zealand. If you did that, you could immediately go into a university. You didn't have year 13. Or, you didn't have to do foundation actually. But now, after a period of time, after 1987, after a few years, universities in Australia and New Zealand stopped recognizing those qualifications because we moved away from that. So there is a need to build it, rebuild that. But You can't do it overnight. You can't do it overnight. In the same way, you can't get a doctor to do a heart surgery overnight. He or she has to be well qualified, need to have the accreditation, need to right equipment, etc. So that's something definitely we like to work towards. Thank you. Next, please.
The Honorable Attorney General, Minister of Finance, Public Enterprises, Public Service and Communications, the other government officials, Ministry of Education officials, hardworking teachers and fellow colleagues, a big good evening to you all. I am Elias Akoyada, a student of Government of College, Sinatoka. So I have two submissions to be made. The first one is regarding TELS. It would be more appropriate and easy if a TELS branch is established in Sinatoka and aligned with the Ministry of Education at Nabusa office, so that students could be served more effectively. It will be all in line with the Honorable Prime Minister's vision to take government service to each and every individual. The second one is regarding scholarships. I think more scholarships should be awarded for postgraduate and masters. We need the expertise in our workforce, and for that we need to give incentives to our graduates in order to upgrade their qualifications. Thank you.
Very pertinent issue regarding the decentralization of services, and the TELS office is definitely something we have been talking to them about, to have their offices also outside of Suva and Lotoka, and we'll see about them decentralizing when you ask them to do that. There may be, what we call a mobile sort of office moving around, because it also doesn't cost money to set up permanent offices. In particular, when the office will only be used probably 1 or 2 months in a year, usually when people come take education. So they probably should have a moving office in centers outside Suva and Lotoka. Postgraduate, most definitely, we at the moment we do fund doctors to do their postgraduate studies. So a lot of the doctors who are working in the hospital system, they're also doing postgraduate studies at the Beach School of Medicine. So we pay for that. And in fact, we intend to, from next year, pick up the entire tab. So they are specific areas. Again, it's a question of prioritization. As you know, postgraduate studies is not more expensive. So, like for example, the postgraduate studies in a year at the School of Medicine is $25,000 for 1 year. So if we do, 20 doctors, we're looking at $500,000. On the other hand, we want students to actually do their undergraduate first. So, in time to come, we'll be able to look at which are the other areas that we can do postgraduate studies. But most definitely, postgraduate studies is something that should be on the table. Thanks for that.
Chief Guest, Honorable Attorney General Mr. Yasir Qayyum, invited guests and dear friends, Assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all. On behalf of Tamil Muslim College, I would like to express my views on the Topper Scholarship. On one side, the PG government and schools, they are telling students or encouraging students to do more accounting and economics. And on the other side, when the Topper Scholarship is given out the priority areas, medical and science field, there is 171 scholarships given. And the commerce side, there is 20 scholarships given. So that is only provided for the best 20. Whereas the others, they have to opt for the second or the third option they have written. So they do not give their best when they opt for the second or third one. And for the medical one, there is a total of 171. So maybe most of them are choosing doctors or whatever fields in science. So after maybe 6 years, there's so many of doctors in PG. So if the priority areas could be revised and more scholarships could be given in commerce field. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Who's telling you to study commerce, encouraging you to do commerce? Your parents or your teachers?
My parents, and it's my choice, and also we can see every day that accounting and economics, it's like there's so much in demand.
Okay, now I'll tell you how the Toppers works. You see, in the Toppers, we don't give scholarship for lawyers, because there are too many lawyers. So, because, as I mentioned about limited funds, we want to give priority to those areas where we have a shortage of skill sets in Fiji. If you compare the number of doctors we have per head, the number of people wanting to do commerce and finance, far less doctors. Sure, some of you have gone to hospitals where people sometimes wait 4 or 5 hours to see a doctor. And even if we gave scholarships to 170 for the next 5 or 6 years, there won't be too many doctors. Today, at the moment in Fiji, if any one of us in this room has a heart attack, as they say, we need an open heart surgery. Probably the candidates for that will be some of the teachers and myself. All of you are too young. But there is nobody that can carry out a heart surgery in Fiji at the moment. Nobody. There's no heart surgeon. No Fijian heart surgeon. This is why we depend, people go away overseas. They go to Australia, New Zealand. A lot of people are now going to India. They're very good services and it's a fraction of the cost. But the reality is, we don't have any heart surgeons in Fiji. We don't have any heart surgeons. Why? You see, just because I've been to Fiji School of Medicine and come out a doctor, I can't do heart surgery. To be a heart surgeon takes about 10 or 15 years. The hospital, the government has to invest in those doctors, they need to send them away, get them to specialize, and then, only then you become a heart surgeon. So we are, what we're doing, playing catch up. Yesterday on Sunday, Saturday in School Grammar School, a lot of students complained. They said at the moment in the schools, the student counselors or counselors, the teachers who are doing counseling work. That should not be the case. It should be specialized counselors. There's not enough psychologists in Fiji. When some of your teachers are teaching, then you expect them to come and you tell them about your problems. You can't do that. They're not trained for that. They have a graduation or they've graduated in education, not counseling. On Saturday there was a young man who talked about how in his class there was a girl who's schizophrenic. She's doing well. And one of his friends was a bipolar and she committed suicide. But there's not enough facilities. People till today in Fiji, some people who may have slight chemical imbalance in the brain, they go to St. Giles, maybe they're for a few weeks and they come out with medication. When they come out, there's nobody to look after them. There's no aftercare facilities. Because we don't have enough trained people. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough doctors. So that's the rationale. We don't have enough marine scientists. We don't have enough forest conservators. We don't have enough town planners. At Fiji, one said we have only 2 town planners. How can you modernize when you have only 2 town planners? We have a shortage of land surveyors. A lot of the land is to be surveyed before you get a lease. Those of you live in the rural areas. Most of you people live in what they call short-term leases or Vatavanua arrangements. There's no proper demarcation of land. That's the rationale. I know you want to do commerce. It's highly competitive. I wish you well and you get very high marks. So you can become a plumber. In the meantime though, if you don't get the scholarship, you can get TELS. So TELS is where you don't want to pay for the fees, or you cannot afford to pay for the fees, but we pay for you. And you pay after you have graduated and after you've got a job. We don't expect you to pay back the loan after you've graduated. We expect you to pay back the loan, small amounts, over a period of time, once you've started working. And the interest rate is 0% for those whose families earn less than 16,000. The maximum interest rate is 1.5 or 1.6%. That's very, very low. No bank will ever give that much. They're not a development bank. So it's very low. If you want to, once you graduate and then you want to migrate, we expect you to pay the entire sum before you migrate. Because that money needs to be paid, kept and paid for the next person coming after you. So that's the way the system works. And we've had the same issue raised in Suva and raised in also Banua Level 2. where some students are saying that, my one gentleman said in Bangalore, he said, I want to do law, I want to become a papa. But you don't have any papa, you said, no, we don't. We have to prioritize. If we were like Singapore, we can maybe have a lot more topics. But that's something that we are looking at. Not to say that door is closed, but we're looking at. I'm not saying it's going to happen next year or the year after next, but that's something we're looking at.